I was completely wrong about China. The CCP is paying me more money to lie than I thought they would. It's going to make me rich. After my recent China videos, I've gotten thousands of comments from you guys. Lots of you are looking for travel advice, some of you offered corrections or additional insight to experiences I had and topics I covered, and some of you just thought I was completely wrong. So today I'm taking some time to sit down here in Greece and respond to some of your comments on my recent China videos. We're going to start with a few more practical things that I noticed in many comments, and then we'll branch out from there. So, I find that using my foreign SIM card with a data plan for all app and internet access is the most convenient. Then I got the cheapest local SIM card to input into Chinese apps in case the driver or delivery person wants to call me. So I think the basic essence of this comment is the fact that in China there's something known as the Great Firewall. Basically, a lot of websites and apps on the internet are blocked. So for me, while traveling in China, my go-to was always just a simple VPN. I just used Surfshark during my whole recent trip there. And every time I needed to check my Gmail or upload a video to YouTube or whatever, I was able to get it to work. Though sometimes it was slower than others. Down in the southern part of China I visited, in Xishuangbanna in Yunnan province, it just seemed like the VPN would work, but the connection was slower for sure. What Clara's getting at here though is the fact that you can also buy various SIM cards or eSIMs that basically have a VPN automatically connected to them, and they'll also give you access to websites or apps that wouldn't usually work in mainland China. But the other part of her comment is also really interesting because I experienced this a few times. Ordering food online, for example, is a huge thing in China. It's really fast, really easy. Chinese food is amazing, and sometimes you just don't feel like going out or whatever, but the delivery drivers will always try to give you a call or send you a message, and if you have a local number, that's a lot easier. I mean, I personally just ended up waiting down in the hotel lobby and was able to meet them every time. I didn't have any huge issues, but it does seem like having a local SIM card in China, if possible, would probably be worth it. They're pretty cheap there. Also, maybe a little bonus if you do have a second local SIM card in China and a VPN is if your Wi-Fi network or your other eSIM or whatever you have isn't letting you access a website you're trying to access, there's a good chance you can use the VPN on your local SIM card network and potentially solve the problem. But yeah, definitely something to always think through before visiting China, because setting it up once you're there might just be a little bit more complicated. The same thing goes with payment apps like WeChat and Alipay too. Basically, every transaction I had in China, I used one of those apps. Another comment that caught my eye, almost fully unrelated, but can I ask some Westerners here in the comment section? Westerner here. Almost every time I see a foreigner anywhere, not just China, but I think they have a Chinese perspective here. They're called Anonymous Dude 123, so I can't say for sure who left this comment. But they say, I see them carrying an absolutely massive pack on their backs, like genuinely humongous. What is the reasoning behind this? They walk into extremely expensive hotels and don't seem to have any intention of camping or living outdoors. So why not a conventional suitcase instead of such a large bag on your back? And this last one's actually an interesting point because I went through land customs leaving China. I always get so confused, and it's so obvious whenever I go through customs. I gotta start by pushing back a little bit on this comment because it's kind of just bunching all Westerners into one imaginary group. Kind of the same thing as if I were to try to bunch all Chinese people into one group. It just wouldn't be the right way to look at things, I don't think. But okay, traveling around through China, more so in Southeast Asia really, you'll see a lot of backpackers who I guess kind of travel on a budget, but maybe in between, like to splurge on a nicer hotel or something, and they might have like a 60-liter or even bigger backpack. If you're doing a long trip like that, I don't know, say 3 months, 6 months, whatever it might be, wheeling a suitcase around to dozens and dozens of cities, towns, etc., over cobblestones, through the mud, doesn't work. I almost always carry a 40-liter backpack on my back, so I don't really think that's what the commenter was describing. They're probably talking about bigger backpacks. But I've got to say, I mentioned I crossed a land border to leave China. That was on the train that goes from China down to Laos. And going through customs with my backpack was just absolutely no problem. It was actually probably easier with a backpack than with a suitcase, but really pretty much the same. And there were all different kinds of people on the train, but I definitely noticed people that seemed like they were probably local, traveling with just backpacks too. So I feel like this question is kind of like a more general question I've heard from travelers all over the world, disguised as something about Western travelers. At least for me, on my recent trip to China, it seemed obvious that a backpack was the best option. But another one I saw that's also in that practical realm of things: don't go for economy seats on high-speed trains. Go for first class, which is like business class in other countries, while the top is business class in China. So for sure, Chinese trains are really, really impressive and amazing, and what this commenter is saying is definitely worth knowing as a visitor to China. There's generally going to be like your first and your second classes and a business class on high-speed trains. On this recent trip, I took one ride in the second class, which is like the economy or coach carriage, and it was nice enough already. But then when I took that cross-border high, or technically higher speed train into Laos, I sat in the first class, which honestly wasn't all that much different than the second class on the other high-speed train I took. But again, they're two kind of different types of trains. So next time I'm back in China, for sure, I would love to give the high-speed train business class a test and probably just see what it's like in first class too, just to get an idea of the in-between option. And I've seen that prices for that are generally quite reasonable, so I guess I'll have to check that out. If you've been in first class or business class on a Chinese high-speed train, I'd love to hear about your experience though. Okay, another comment that I found very interesting. I think I might have said something along the lines of, there is no Google Maps in China, and they pointed out that that's technically not exactly true. They go on to explain that Google Maps uses location services, which requires more than just GPS to work the way Westerners are used to. Basically, they're saying something like that because the data goes back and forth to Google's servers, the Great Firewall will filter that data. And even though you've got access to Google Maps with the VPN going, it's still not going to give you that seamless real-time experience, I guess. But the fact of the matter, before I go on reading the comment, is just that you don't even want to bother trying to use Google Maps in China because nobody in China uses it, so there's not like reviews available, everything's mismarked, it doesn't know how to navigate directions for local transport or even driving well. That said, a map, Gaudi map in parentheses, don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, works brilliantly in China. You can sideload it on an Android phone and the nav features blow away anything in the West. It'll even tell you when traffic lights will change accurately to the second. The main thing to know here is that the second you get off that plane, train, whatever it is, into China, just don't try to rely on Google Maps. It doesn't work well there. I actually used Apple Maps quite a bit because, yeah, it's not officially banned. You can use it without even using a VPN, and it works decently. AMAP was the one that locals recommended to me the most, and I guess whenever you have the local population using that app, you're going to have more reviews and stuff like that. So technically, as they said, there's no Google Maps in China. Might not be a 100% accurate statement, but it's good to have another Maps app. And the other thing that comes to mind when we're talking about Maps apps is Dianping, I believe is the correct pronunciation. So it's basically a very extensive app that does a bunch of different stuff, but it has the business ratings in there. So instead of going into Google Maps and saying, you know, is this thing rated somewhere close to 5 stars, you go into Dianping, Pin. Someone correct me in the comments, and then you can see, you know, which restaurants are the most highly rated and have the best bamboo chicken, Peking duck. Okay, another comment that caught my eye from Kevin. This one's got a few questions in it. How many cities have you been to in China, including rural cities, second or third city? I think they mean like second, third, fourth, fifth tier, that kind of ranking system or unofficial ranking system that they have in China. Oh my God, you have more than 1,000 comments on your video. That's a lot. Wow, I know it's actually a lot of comments, and I do read every single comment and try to reply if there's any questions. But anyway, how many cities have I actually been to in China? Because, right, I've got quite a few different videos from China now. That's probably worth knowing. I am not like the self-proclaimed China expert or anything. I've just spent a very limited amount of time in the country, actually. So this past trip, I started in the city of Shanghai, spent a few nights there. That's a really lovely city, by the way. Then I took the high-speed train over to Hangzhou, which is a few hundred kilometers or miles away, I think. But with the fast train, it was like exactly a 45-minute ride. And yeah, a slightly smaller city than Shanghai. I mean, Shanghai is one of the biggest in the world, but it's still bigger than any American city. I think the population's like 12, 14, 15 million. Can't remember the exact number, but it's still got that big city feel. Then from there, I flew down to Yunnan province, which is like in the very south of mainland China, right on the border with Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam. And I spent a few nights in the city or urban area of Xishuangbanna. The official name of the city is actually Jinghong, which I think is kind of a word that comes more from Mandarin, but the original local language there is Dai language, very similar to Thai language. So it confused me for sure, but I guess Jinghong kind of just refers to the urban area, and then Xishuangbanna is a little bit wider than that or something. And then in earlier trips, I visited a few other cities in China. I'd actually been to Shanghai one time before. And then another time I visited Beijing, the capital of the country, and Tianjin, maybe a 30-minute high-speed train ride or so away from Beijing. So a little bit of the north, some of the central or slightly southern area in Shanghai and Hangzhou, and then some of the proper south. Okay, just thinking through all the places I've been in China, I have seen different things in the country, definitely like north to south. It's just like dramatically different. But another comment, and by the way, I've gotten most of these comments more than once in different formats. Who does not bring a translator device when traveling nowadays? Well, Ryan, I hate to break it to you, my friend, but I do bring a translator app. It's just not like a separate whatever. I see people wearing like different types of devices that are like always translating what people are saying, whatever it is. I just use my phone. And the thing about using your phone in China is that there's actually a few different apps that are pretty good, but one was really quite good between Mandarin and English, and it's called Baidu Translate, or just Baidu, something like that. If you search Baidu, that's the app you want if you're going to China and you don't speak fluent Mandarin. So yeah, that's most of the practical stuff there. I mean, mostly in China, it's like you are your phone almost. You just want to have all those apps I mentioned, basically. One other practical thing though, before we move on to some other kind of comments I saw. Where is the trade-off? I mean, you said in China, you are restricted to use their digital exchange system. So in the US, you are allowed to do something else? I can't pay with anything else than US dollars in USA. I don't see any trade-off there, just a win for China. Okay, my most recent video that has to do with China did compare traveling to China and to the United States of America. That's the video they commented this on, so I guess their mindset was a little bit comparing the two countries. But it's not actually the currency exchange that's the main thing you need to kind of keep in mind when visiting China, or even the United States for that matter, but just talking about China here. Pretty much everything goes through payment apps now. Like, a lot of places just don't even take cash. It's even less likely that they would take any Western credit card companies or whatever. So in contrast to much of the world, for sure, especially the so-called Western world, it's different. In the United States or whatever, it's going to be like cash or card. And there are places that do cash only, but little local businesses in China would be much more likely to be like QR code payment only, actually. And I noticed when I was at less chain-seeming, more local-seeming places, often when I would pay in WeChat, I wouldn't actually be doing the kind of normal business transaction. I'd basically just be sending like 10 yuan for lunch to someone's personal WeChat account, I guess, something like that. The process was kind of interesting because basically I'd just stand there as I was checking out, usually using Baidu Translate to translate a few words or just counting on fingers together, whatever it might be. And then I would like physically show them the amount. Usually they have a calculator at every restaurant there. And say it was 8 yuan for lunch for one person, then I would manually put the amount in after scanning their QR code, and they'd just like see that I put the right amount and I'd send it. That's it. The one thing I'm not entirely convinced about is I have heard a lot of people say like these QR payment apps are like the future, they're better, whatever. They're fine. I mean, at least for me, I'm 35 years old. I use a computer and a phone all the time. I know how to use them. But for someone who's like a little bit less native to the digital era, someone a little bit older, then it might not seem as convenient actually. I don't know. That is just how it is in China. I'm not saying it's really worse or better than anywhere else, but that definitely seemed like one potential pain point. Okay, let's talk about something different. In my most recent video comparing China to the United States as a traveler, I made a point of going over crime stats and talking about safety in both of the countries. But I thought this comment gave some useful perspective, I guess. China does not publish any media that may degrade the image of the nation, such as real crime stats, including very common homicide with the use of vehicles. And keep in mind, this is just a comment. I really have no clue exactly how based in fact it is or not. In the US, media overblows crime in order for corporate advertising shock viewership. The second half is pretty much the point I was making in that video about the US. While China has focused on pushing the entire population into similar income brackets. So basically the real underlying topic is just safety in both of those countries, but it's kind of hard to get 100% accurate crime stats anywhere in the world. That's why I chose a website that's not based in either of those countries, but tries to just compile international data called Nation Master. And in essence, at least based on that data, it kind of said that China is at least 4 times more safe than the United States. But it was really the last part of that comment that got me just thinking about safety in China and how it feels different than in most other countries for, I guess you could say, a number of reasons, but there's just kind of like one overarching system. Like things are very controlled in a way. There's lots of security cameras everywhere. It feels like police are more present than in a lot of other countries I've been in. But the way people act and feel when it comes to safety is also different. Just everyone I talked to said that they felt 100% safe everywhere I went in China. There was never like a question about that at all. The feeling of the place when it came to safety was different. A lot of people have just commented stuff like, you feel safe walking around any corner of the country at 3 a.m., regardless of your gender, your size, or whatever. If that's the reality, there's definitely still crime in China, I can say that much. But really, I don't know. I haven't spent enough time there to say for sure. And more than anything, it was just kind of interesting to be in a place like that where safety felt different, I guess. Okay, back to a comment I got on an older video. I was completely wrong about China. I was completely wrong about China. The CCP is paying me more money to lie than I thought they would. I love Chinese propaganda machine. It's going to make me rich. Please keep in mind that I'm only reading the comment out loud. These are not my words at all. But yeah, I've gotten dozens, if not hundreds of comments trying to say that I'm somehow affiliated with the Chinese government. I'm just not. Everywhere I go in the world, so about 80 countries at this point that I've been to, I travel on my own dime and just make an effort to try to understand the place, experience it, and nobody is paying me to make videos about China. If a video is sponsored on my channel, it's always very clear that it's sponsored. So no, Zach Miller. I don't make all that much money on YouTube at all. I'm very thankful that I can make enough to continue traveling all the time, but I am not inflating the truth or trying to get rich off of China. These videos are my experience on the ground in that country, and that's it. Oh yeah, and Zach Miller, I would really encourage you to take a trip to China and see it with your own eyes too. And another question I get all the time, why do you live in Germany? Specifically, do you have work there? Well, alrighty, this gives my last video just a little bit more context, because I was comparing China to the United States as a traveler, but the thing about it is that I spent much more time in the United States because that's where I'm originally from. I lived there for like over 20 years of my life. While traveling over a decade ago, I met my wife in Denmark, and then we tried out living in a few different places, but we settled in Germany. I studied there, I have and continue to work there, and really it just happens to be the country in Europe that my wife and I decided to move to, where we chose to build at least part of our lives, and yeah, that's why we're still there. Doesn't hurt that when I saw that the weather in Germany was going to be like 40 degrees Celsius last week, I was able to hop on a last minute flight and come here. But no, at the moment, there's no particular work or some other purpose that means that I have to live in Germany. I just choose to live there. So, I don't know how many thousands of comments I read through to make this video, but thank you for commenting. Keep them coming. And even though you are watching this, you've probably seen other videos of mine there's a very high chance that you're not yet subscribed to the channel. And the thing is, if you're not subscribed, you're going to miss videos from all the different places that I visit around the world. China, the United States, Germany, and even Greece are just a few of them. So do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button right now. Make sure to hit like too. And if any other questions came to mind while watching this video, drop them down in the comments. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a great day.